So we are the 2%, that represent the 2% in all those sectors. And we have over the years have been strong advocates for the UN, United Nations SDGs, and especially in diversity, equality, inclusivity. And what we want to do, not only with this company and our other company, to be able to open up the opportunities for all generations, not just the young generation. Obviously, we focus on that because they are the future, but also for the older generations, the baby boomers, to have these opportunities to learn about frontier technologies, and also, if they wanted to be analog astronauts. So we are very we are very passionate about trying to change the constructs that we are encountering in our society, especially in the West, about discrimination, about inequality, about lack of resource and opportunities for those underrepresented and underserved, right? So we want to take the programs that we created and take it out not only into the United States, but internationally, which we have managed to do over the years. And right now, I know we're talking about STEM education, but it's not just about that. It's about how do you take these STEM education, integrate technology, and then offer it to these communities that have, over the years, been excluded, right? So with that, let's talk, Emmy. You can start with this slide, just say what MRS is, and we can go on to the next slide.
Sure. So MMARS is Mars Moon Astronautics Academy and Research Sciences, and we develop next-gen leaders, analog astronauts, innovators, Imagineers, explorers, et cetera, et cetera. We have a facility land out in Mojave, California, and we also partner with other corporations internationally to provide low-fidelity, high-fidelity, and mid-fidelity analog astronaut simulations for individuals on an international scale, but especially targeting people in the United States first and foremost. But we don't just curate analog astronaut. Oh, can you hear me?
Oh. Okay, Mr. Next slide.
Yeah.
Next slide, Ken. Yes, so we're out in the California city, but now we're going to be working probably near the Mojave Spaceport.
Yeah.
So, Em, do you want to talk about?
Okay, so we are involved with space, astronautics, aeronautics, aviation, and we really focus heavily on education, research, and development. And we are highly focused, if you see, on the right-hand side here, social impact or diversity, equality, inclusivity. Again, because we are a minority group, we are women in technology, women in aviation, women in medicine. We are victims of being excluded, being discriminated against. It's very unfortunate, but things are slowly changing, and we want to be involved with the social change of bringing in a big majority of the population that's not just white males. We want to bring in, and it is the way it is, like women in aviation right now, globally, only 7% of pilots are women. And so there is a big push to get more women involved.
Also, that also applies, I think, statistically wise to, aerospace and space, right? As you know, I think 600 humans, maybe around that, has actually gone into space per se, right? That passed the common line. And you have to look at the statistics then, over 600, how many of them are women? Right? How many of them are actually from a minority group? So, the statistics tells you, what's happening, but it is changing because why? The onboarding of commercial space. That is going to change this paradigm construct, and that's what we're part of. So actually here you could see this is we deploy missions out in the desert in Mojave. You can see the Mojave there, and since 2014. Deployed multiple missions, and here's the winter time, as Dean has just preempted me. So this was out in the Utah desert. We experimented the very first station-to-station analog missions, and because usually most analog mission crew is only a hold up to 6, but we had up to 12, 14 individuals, and it was really interesting because we were trying to throw in caveats of how do you have 2 crew missions. We divided into 2 crews, and we threw in caveats of different challenges that they had to overcome to work together to keep the mission going.
Right. So just to lay the foundation, if anyone's not familiar with analog astronaut trainings and simulations, the company that was the frontier of this whole entire kind of segment of analog astronauts is really Mars Desert Research Society, or Mars Society, out in Hanksville, Utah. And they have their, right there on the bottom right, MDRS out there in Utah, they have their habitat. And typically, a lot of these other habitats that started popping up followed the model of MDRS, which was providing a habitat or a location that simulates the moon or the Mars or space, and living in a habitat in space. And there's parameters that they typically set. So a typical mission in this kind of setting is around 1 to 2 weeks, 2 weeks max or so, with a crew of 6 to 8 people. And you essentially rent out this habitat like an Airbnb, and then you conduct your research that you want to bring in. There are limitations to this. Some organizations only allow you to bring in your research once, and you can't bring it in multiple times. And that is a restriction on data collection, if you are an avid researcher. So with MMARS, we realize that this is a severe limitation, especially with a lot of the technologies that we want to bring and test, and human factors and studies that we want to test. So with MMARS, we allow multiple reiterations of studies to come in, and you're not limited on that. And the duration is not just limited to 2 weeks. We work with researchers to design a mission that fits what you need to conduct your research.
Exactly. And so you can see here pictures of several analog stations, astronaut stations, except for the one in Antarctica, right in the middle of the yellow border. That actually is not an analog station, but it's an analog because it's out in Concordia Station in Antarctica, where they're isolated for 8 months. So nothing can go in, nothing can come out. So that's kind of that simulation. Absolutely, yes. So up there on the upper right is our own, and what's so unique about us, because our history, well, my history is that my father is in the British military. So we always try to say, okay, you deploy a mission, you do it stealth, you do what you need to do, and then you have to leave, but you leave no footprint, right? So we developed our connecting pods that can expand. It's mobile, it's portable. You can deploy multiple missions concurrently at different geographic locations, and you can also expand the number of crews members in each. Versus the others, which is stationary, and it can only hold a maximum of what number? 6, usually 6, because there are actual structures that are permanently located. So that's what's so unique about our habitat. And when you're talking about space, you always have to think of those criteria, right? Is it portable? It's expandable, payload, and so on and so forth. And so this is kind of the expansion of where we want to go, because, obviously we want to simulate, life in space and one day on planet surface. So you're not just going to have 6 people, right? Eventually, the whole idea was Blue Origin, with Orbital Reef, with Axiom Space, these are the commercial side, and of course Elon Musk with SpaceX. They want to build settlements on a planet surface, Moon and Mars. So you're not just going to have small crews. You're literally going to eventually have. Yes, exactly, in Lagrange. So you're going to have more people living in space, working in space permanently, because that's what the mission of these commercial companies are, and that's probably where even NASA wants to see humans, permanence in space. So what we are doing is eventually the vision for the next year or two is to build out in the Mojave our sort of very early prototype of a first analog astronaut space city, or we could settlement, right, where we can house and train up to 25 to maybe up to 100, and then eventually to 1,000 analog astronauts, coming in, living for long duration, not just for 2 weeks, maybe for 6 months, 1 year to 3 years. And you can do a lot of testing, human factors, governance, 3D printing. Obviously, we already have 3D printing, and so on and so forth, technology development, and medical as well, because obviously we focus on, if you have humans in the loop, you better take care of them. KM, do you want to go through this?
Sure. So at Mars, we provide a wide variety of training programs. And this is another differentiator between our company and a lot of other analog astronaut companies. We offer different fidelities, first and foremost, for people that want to come in and bring in their research to the analog setting. So we have low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity. And then we also have the virtual programs. So if you're completely unfamiliar with the analog setting and being in an isolated, confined environment or ICE environment, it's very important. What we saw as a challenge was getting people ready to be in this kind of environment. So we designed a virtual program that brand new individuals or researchers that want to go through an analog astronaut simulation will have to go through first to get an idea and get introduced to an analog setting and what to expect when you're going to go in person. Because when you're in person, it's very different than what you would imagine it to be. And so then once you go through your virtual academy, and we offer it online, then you can do it in your living room and you're interacting with the crew. Then you can come into the low fidelity in person, and that is out in Mojave Desert. And that has its own challenges because you have the temperature. It gets very hot up there. So it gets up to 40 degrees Celsius, or, over 100 degrees during the summertime. You have 40 knot winds. You have a lot of environmental factors that can come into play with your research, in particular if you're using technology, also the human factors. And then also just the social dynamic. If you bring in a crew member or you remove a crew member, the whole social dynamic of that crew can and will change. So you have the low fidelity, and then we get higher. So once you pass the low fidelities, and we can assess your capabilities of handling that kind of ice, then you can go to mid fidelity or high fidelity. We did have a mid fidelity mission in 2019, which was in the Himalayas in Kilimanjaro. It was at 15,000 feet. And that one was an all medical crew, just because that was our first deployed mission to the Himalayas in that kind of environment. And we did have a medical emergency, and that's why we had an all medical crew. So, but we will be going to Everest, which will be at 17,000 feet in 2024, and that will be a highly specialized crew as well. But this is a whole training program, and you can get involved, in the virtual side and then low fidelity. And again, it's an evolution of once you get more acclimated to these kind of environments and an analog astronaut setting, you can move up and progress.
So we have over the years, so in 2019, we started the virtual training. Basically, it's a translation of all our in-person training programs into a virtual training. And we have partnered, and this is where I think it will be interesting for why we're here, is we've partnered with colleges, universities, all around the world. So we worked with one was Space Kids India, and they were from ages 9 to 15, and then they would come in to our virtual program from India live, right, in real time, and engage in the program. But they also had the opportunity, and here is our virtual Okay, so this is a high-level slide of our virtual training, where you see over there, you come in through, Zoom, as we're doing here, or Skype, but usually Zoom, and then they can engage in a lot of different module training. So, as by 3D printing, they have space medicine, medical technology, engineering, and so on and so forth. But what's so unique about this is not just all virtual, because if we have a concurrent in-person mission running at the same time, they can join remote mission control virtually and be able to interact with the on-site crew, right? So they can, when they do an EVA, extravehicular activity, they can also engage with the crew in real time. So yet again, as I said, this is a learning where it's experiential. But what we focus on is frontier technology. So when you come into our programs, you're going to learn and have hands-on activity and interaction with frontier technologies, right? So that's spatial, that's AR, spatial computing, blockchain, AI, 3D printing, medical technology. That is what you're going to learn about, and that's what you're going to engage in and work on some of the projects as well that's ongoing. So this is what's so unique about the virtual training. It's a hybrid program. So here is what you can also engage in, because we're heavily involved with our partner company Avatar Medic in using spatial computers, HoloLens, or using Oculus, and they're able to engage as avatars in real time to learn. In this case, where this program here is learning basic medical interactions, right? Protocols. For example, how do you stop hemorrhaging down there? That's an avatar. They actually engage. They wear these headsets. They can immerse themselves as avatars in real time and learn these medical technologies. This is the future of how medical students and also medical residents are going to learn and be relicensed and recertified. But for astronauts, this is a way that they're going to learn too, right? So this is a great way. Yeah, we call it the metaverse because that's the sexy word right now. But the metaverse, we started working on that in the 2010, very early days, and telemedicine. So you get to engage in this as well when you come, and you get to learn, you get to interact with these technologies. Oops, and do you want to go to the next one? I'll just clicker. Oh. So I don't think this will play.
I don't know if this video will play. I'm not sure.
Just try it. So we created this in 2015, was our VR AR training. So you can actually be a digital astronaut in a virtual world and go through our program. But I don't know if this is going to play. If it doesn't, that's fine.
It might just be an image on this one. Yeah. I don't think the link is on the background.
So yeah, let's go to the next one.
Oh, we'll just go to the next one.
So this is the same too. And is it going to play? Okay, let's press. Yeah. Okay, so if you're interested, you can always you just Google. You can Google astronautic training, MRs, and you could go to that. But really, you're going to come in as a digital astronaut, as you could see there, and you're going to be an avatar, and you're going to be able to train in our programs. Let's go to the next slide because it'll show a little bit of our programs. Slide.
Trying to play.
Yeah. It would be good if it can play, because it gives you okay. Let's go to the next slide because it will show you our programs, the training modules that you can engage in when you come into our. And this is something we want to work with teachers, with colleges, we're not just focused on K-12, right? We're very much also about career professionals, citizen scientists. We work with postgrads, we work with PIs, principal investigators at universities. So they come in and we partner with them, and they can bring in their research into our missions as well, and collect data and do proof of concept, validate their technology or whatever it is they're creating, but also learn about the technologies. All right, let's forget about that. Let's go to the next slide. Here. Okay, do you want to talk about that one?
So yeah, so we provide in-person astronautic training missions. As you can see here in these photos, and this right next to the logo is when we went to the Himalayas, and they have the little medical team up there. But we provide a total immersion of all these different kind of environments for people to come in and do their research, or to experience themselves for human factors. So we do the medical EVAs. We're very focused on medicine, space medicine. I feel that is an element that is very overlooked. when it comes to space exploration and these analog astronaut simulations. And so for MMARS, we do a lot of heavy focus on medical research out in the fields and human factors, as well as technology capabilities. So we run a lot of medical extravehicular activities, which is involving the medical aspect out when you leave the habitat. And then, if you have like an injured crew member, as an example. We also do some micro GVR. So we do virtual reality in the pool. To be able to experience that, weightlessness in the pool versus just doing it on the ground and on Earth and running around. We also have telemedicine capabilities. So we do work with a wide variety of medical professionals, of course, surgeons and so on and so forth, that come in and train non-medically trained analog astronauts to be able to do basic medical support to potentially injured crew members in our missions. And then we also do a lot of other things. So again, 3D printing, body mapping, rovers and robotics. We're heavy in robotics as well. And then of course, VR, AR, XR. So
I think a lot of these simulations is also looking at human factors. How do you develop mitigation countermeasures to be able to overcome some of these human factors challenges? The next slide. Oh, what's going on there? Oh. Can we go to the next slide, Ken? Okay, so Em, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So as we grow and expand, we're going to be integrating more programs. Vomit Comet. Yeah. That is that's just a fun little Cessna. It's like, but we are going to be eventually offering parabolic flight training. Our next stage is actually offering flight training. It's probably going to be aerobatics flight training, so you can experience the G-force on your body up to around 4 Gs. Any more than that, it's a little too much for normal people to go through. So our next phase for training is going to be incorporating more aviation components into it. I am a flight instructor as well, and I do aerobatic competitions, aerobatics. So I felt that was actually a big need for the human factors elements and people experiencing these forces on their bodies. And then once you have the positive Gs, then it'll be going to negative. You can actually experience negative Gs in aerobatic flight as well. But we will be partnering with a company that will run parabolic flight training or flights, not 0G, the 727 out of Long Beach, but ones in smaller aircrafts because it's more feasible.
I think also it's not
Sure.
just about the experience. I think that's important, but it's also the scientific payload. So
Yes.
we're able to not just have the participants be on the plane and experience that, but we'll also be able to bring in research payloads and be able to offer it cheaper and more effective, to do your payloads and test it in parabolic flights.
Yes, and then of course we have the Aquanauts. Again, that's the underwater training. So that's moving beyond. Right now we have the underwater VR training, which that in itself is an experience. But continuing more like scuba certification programs, to be able to do more intensive aquanautic training. And partnering with companies and educational institutions as well to be able to do more aquanaut training.
I think aquanautic training for us is not only learning how to do to perform underwater, but search and rescue underwater, right? How do you try to save somebody that's drowning or somebody that is injured, and water, by the way, is analog of space. So that's why astronauts. Sorry.
It is an
exactly. It's an analog environment. That's why the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, which is that huge swimming pool that all NASA astronauts are trained in, at Johnson Space Center, is reason why they use the swimming pool. Right, water is an analog space. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then of course we have the Lavanauts. So there's always the concept of maybe potentially building a habitat under. In lava tubes. So just having essentially what all these have in common is that it's unfamiliar to the average person, right? Average person's just walking around on Earth, and all of these different kind of programs and opportunities gets you to experience all these different forces, all these different environments, and how that affects you adversely, and how do you overcome those challenges.
At the same time, as you can see, we have a lot of specialized training tracks. And I'm not going to, you can read it for yourself. But the point of that is we want to be diverse. We want to be inclusive of all different areas where you can come in and have these experiences, but at the same time it's working with the scientists, working with the researchers to be able to bring in their research, to be able to, you know, proof of concept their research, collect data, you know, validate, and so on and so forth, build new technologies, new paradigms, new standard operation procedures, and so on. So it's really about inclusivity, right, across all board. And so that's what we're offering. That's what's so unique. Next slide. And here is just an example, just a deeper dive of the space medicine and medtech track, which we're heavily involved in. And these are technologies, and you can see Joan there. That's the vapor jet where we do 3D printing. Actually, all of this is 3D printed. That over there, the Papier, the respiratory device, that was all free as a prototype 3D printing that was actually developed by anesthesiologist Dr. Choi, and here's testing it out, a prototype in an actual operation during COVID, and that patient was COVID positive. So this is a way to protect frontline providers from being infected. And he actually wore this prototype, and of course it's got a bag right now, but you know, obviously it was to be built on a helmet or something. But the point, he actually wore that for nearly 10 hours in this operation. And, you know, it's monitoring the gases, the carbon dioxide, the oxygen coming in, being able to, you know, monitor their physiology as well while wearing this. But then there's the vapor jet there, all 3D printed. This is the way that we're going to change. This was actually 3D printed on the International Space Station 2015. The vapor jet is a paradigm change of how we're going to offer surgery in space, because right now we cannot do surgery in space. All right, so this is the first inhalation anesthesia device that is all 3D printed in parts. You see at the top, you see our analog astronauts. These are all doctors in our analog mission, because that's great. You can 3D print it, but do you know how to use it? So we were training them how to use this vapor jet to be, obviously we're not allowed to use humans at this point because it's research. So we use a dummy, and this is the whole point of you have an engagement, you learn about the technology, you learn about the application, and you practically, you know, there's the practical component of being able to do it and use it. And this is what our med tech is. You come up with an idea, an innovation, you build it, you create it, then you find an application, right? So next slide. Oh, and then this one here, the middle one, this is what we developed, solar power 3D printer. And we've tested this out in different environments, and you can see below, we actually, with this, it's all solar powered. So now you're off grid. So now this is the capability of 3D printing off grid. When you have no power, as long as you have sun, you can 3D print. So we're 3D printing these scalpels, and we actually use these 3D printed equipment in our learning surgery for the students. So this is good example of what can be learned, right? Using exponential technology, but the application of it as well. Next slide. Go ahead, Em. Do you want to do this? Robots. Okay. So part of what we also with Unitas is space medicine, right? So humans in the loop, go take care of them no matter where, especially in space and in austere environments. But this is also going to change how we're going to conduct medicine in a clinical setting, in a rural environment or in an urban environment. So in our missions over the years, we also prototype the whole idea of a space clinic, right? And in the space clinic, it's designated to do all these medical training, how to use these technologies. So down below, we, with our partner company Avatar Medic, we brought in a whole 3D printed robotic arm. And this 3D printing robotic arm actually was controlled by 300 miles away in Las Vegas. This was out in the Mojave Desert. And this surgeon was controlling the robotic arm 300 miles away in real time, working with the crew. And these analog astronaut crews were all non-medical. One was a graphic artist, another was an engineer, and they had no medical background. But they were able to do anesthesia and learn how to do anesthesia, and also intubation and also surgery with a remote surgeon. So this is a paradigm change, right? Using technology. And I think this is the future of how medicine is going to be provided. It's going to democratize medicine accessibility and resource experts for not just for space, but here in all remote areas or underserved communities in the world, right? I think this is really, really a very important aspect of technology and how you can apply technology to have society impact in a positive way. Next slide. We're nearly done. Em, you want to do this? Okay, so part of what we do in this simulation, and this is what the participants come in. So the students come in, they come in virtually, we actually have this virtually, or then eventually come in person, they engage in what they learn in an active way, right? So this is entertainment, interactive, immersive. Part of the simulations we do is also about human health, mental health, wellness. And here over the years we've used technology. You could see, you know, virtual reality headsets, Oculus. We had sonic meditation, where they're able to now also incorporate music, but music frequency that has been, you know, peer reviewed to show different frequencies that can actually benefit health and be able to mitigate stress. And in these missions, a space mission or any very austere, stressful situations, stress is pretty high. So how can you reduce it? How can you mitigate it? So sonic meditation, where they wear the Oculus, they do meditation in the Oculus, but they also have music. That's why it's called sonic, right? Music at a certain frequency that changes their delta waves, right? Their theta waves to delta waves, where they're able to now be calm with the music as well as meditate and using Oculus. So now they're also immersed in this immersive environment, and they're really in the environment and not have any distractions. So the other one here is, you know, using art. Art is part of our culture, it's part of our humanity. So when we go to space, we're not going to, you know, eliminate arts, but using art in a therapeutic way. So body mapping, and we use, first they do 2D body mapping, then they use the augmented reality, and they do it in an immersive way, 360, and create the body map. Body mapping is a peer review accepted therapeutic intervention for patients that are terminal, for cancer patients, for patients with mental health. So over the years, this has been a protocol or a procedure, a therapeutic procedure that has shown real benefits for patients. But in our case, we want to use it as a mitigation strategy for austere environments and for space for astronauts. And we've used this in our missions for the last 5-6 years, which actually has, we've published our work and have really shown benefits for both, not only for the mental health of the individual, but for crew cohesion, bonding, reducing conflict, and so on and so forth, which is all part of why we do these analog missions. Next, I think we're near the end. And go ahead, Em, you want to go?
Oh, so this is just a continuation that we are going to be moving to finally our high fidelity missions. Again, in 2024, we'll conduct our first mission at Mount Everest at 17,000 feet. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration when we go higher up in fidelities. Again, 17,000 feet, you deal with lack of oxygen, hypoxia, high mountain altitude sickness, so on and so forth. So this is just an example of a partnerships that we're working with, and you know how we go ahead and move beyond just low fidelity in Mojave, and how we're capable of being able to go up into these higher and more challenging environments, such as Everest at 17,000 feet.
Yeah, and so you can see below, nutrition and diet is very important. So we have to study our missions over the years. Now, what you eat is what you become, right? So we have studied different types of diets for these crews, and you know, vegetarian diet, ketogenic diet over the years. And what we're going to actually deploy missions in next year, Q3, Q4 of next year, and we will start a Martian diet. And the Martian diet we've curated and developed. We haven't tested it yet, but we will. The Martian diet is really focused on high quality protein that's non-animal origin. So it will be insects, it will be plant-based. We're going to test, you know, 3D printed bioreactors with stem cells, with plant stem cells, and create, you know, different types of food source. So the idea of not only nutrition and the diet that the individuals help to maintain their physical and mental health wellness, it's also about sustainability, right? It's also about the ability to use these applications to also be, to benefit life on Earth, right? So diet and nutrition, absolutely. We worked with the National Space Society for competition, and we have in year 4. If you want to go to that website, interested in joining the competition, you can go and you can. We've just opened up for year 4, and you can participate. Next slide. And I think this is the last few slides. Em, you want to talk about this initiatives?
Sure. So we just went to the first ever Intertribal Space Conference out in Oklahoma City, or around Oklahoma City. And really what it is providing opportunities for communities that are very underrepresented or overlooked. And Native Americans is a perfect example. And just tribal communities around the globe. I've worked with and lived with tribes around the world, and they're very smart, intelligent, motivated individuals. They just lack the resources and the opportunities to be able to utilize their talents to, contribute in a significant way. So we're partnering with the Intertribal Society to be able to bring in all of these underrepresented communities into the commercial space sector and giving them opportunities such as scholarships and internships to be able to come into our program and to participate and to be really involved and motivated. So that's really what this is.
Yes, so it's the first inaugural conference they had, and it was the Intertribal Space Agency. So they formed an agency now, and in fact, the first female Indigenous Native American is on the ISS. So this is the future where space exploration is going to be inclusive. It's going to have many faces, right? Not just one face. It's going to include everybody, because commercial space is about inclusivity and diversity. Because if we are going to successfully be living permanently in space and on a planet's surface, we need everybody involved. So space is for all and not just for the few.
And so for that, also, we are going to be planning our first ever all intertribal crew mission. So if anyone knows anyone that, is involved with any of the local communities like Navajo or, then, please reach out to us, because we'd like to get in contact with them as well to see who would be interested in, participating in that mission.
Yeah, and also what would be interested in these missions. And next slide. Is that we are going to incorporate multiple missions, right? Different types of crew mix. One, what Emmy just said, will be for the intertribal, Native Indigenous people around the world. If you belong to a tribe around the world, you can come in. We'll give you a scholarship to join these missions. And we will also have the first female humanoid robot that will be a crew participant, which is a really innovative and is cutting edge in terms of having a humanoid robot, female robot, that's going to join the mission itself. Now, finally, this is our last slide, promise. This is what I would like to talk to everybody out there. If you're interested, the whole idea why we started this presentation is our initiatives, and it's about DEI, diversity, inclusivity, and equality and inclusivity. And so we've started these initiatives, and you could see, all 4, but includes also actually our 5th one, which we just talked about, the intertribal. But the idea is, you could see from these 4 initiatives, it really is about everybody. If you're interested, you can reach out to us, and we will be able to talk to you. And if you're a school, if you're a principal investigator with a project, if you're, you head a citizen scientist group, community, reach out to us, because we want you on board, and we will work with you to bring you in and give you these very immersive, interactive experiences. And so our para astronaut is the disabled community. Our women, obviously women on Mars is really female entrepreneurs, because it's the same problem. Even VCs right now in Silicon Valley, anywhere actually, is that if you're a female entrepreneur, you're a CEO, a co-founder of a company, and then there's a male counterpart that's pitching for money, guess what? It is the VC is going to go for the male Right now, it's still the same challenges that women entrepreneurs face, and we're still facing it too, right? You could be everything equalized, they would just pick the male, especially in the hard sectors that we're in, right? So we want to change that conversation, that narrative. So also then we have obviously the LGBTQT and minority underrepresented communities and the Apollo. I am a baby boomer. I saw, Neil Armstrong step in the moon when I was 7. And I also felt, ageism was a part of prejudice that I encountered over the years. Ageism, would you believe? So I want to be able to say to everyone out there who are the baby boomers, you're not excluded from these experiential learning and learning about frontier technologies. If you're a teacher and you want to learn more about frontier technologies and then how to bring that into your classroom for your students who are the next generation, we want to work with you because I felt it myself. And that's why I want to start this initiative called the Apollo, right? Because a certain age, for some reason, if you're past 60, you are eliminated from any participation for some reason or another. Even though you have all these skills, you have all the knowledge, you've encountered all the problems over the years in your life experience, but you're not allowed to engage. So we're going to change that as well. So please reach out to us. Next slide. I think it's the final slide. Thank you so much. I think we went over time. Emmy, you want to say?
Sure. So essentially, that was a lot of information. We do a lot of things because what MRs is an academy. It's a place where opportunities are endless because space is a place where opportunities are endless. And we are not targeting one specific demographic. We want, the International Astronautical Congress this year, their slogan was Space for All. And we wholeheartedly believe that space is for all. It's the next frontier. Everyone needs to get involved. Everyone should get involved. And, there are restrictions for certain individuals and groups, and we don't want those restrictions in place at our place. So we want everyone that wants to contribute to the commercial space sector to come in and do what they want to do and have a space that they feel that they can. That's heavy in research as well. So if you want to jump in on our research studies, if you want to bring in your own research studies, if you just want to experience it, the opportunities are endless. And that's what MMARS is really creating. It's not just a place where you can rent for 2 weeks and do what you want to do for one time only. It's a place to really be involved with the commercial space sector.
Yeah, and I just want to end on this is space is still the final front. It's kind of one of the final frontiers, but it's not the final frontier, but it's a known frontier for humans, right? And that's where the unknown allows you to think out of the box, to find to real hard challenges, because still, there is still a room for you to be creative. It's called, Imagineering, visioneering. So space allows you to do that. But I want to end to let people know space is not a way for people like us to escape Earth's problem. In fact, it's inversely the opposite. Space allows us to find solutions to really hard challenges and then to apply it to solve problems on Earth. That ultimately is the key reason why we do what we do, right? So I always say, and to the naysayers out there, space is not to run away from the problems on Earth. Space actually helps us to find real solutions to our humanity on Earth, and then allowing us to expand out, because we are innately, the DNA of our humanity is that we are the explorers, and we will, no matter what anyone says, we will expand ourselves back out into space, which really is our home, right? So that's kind of what I want everyone to know, is that we're really about trying to bring what we do to be able to have more people on board and not just keep talking to the choir, as they say, right? So that's the hardest challenge. NASA's had that challenge, still do. How do they stop talking to the choir and bring the general public and more people on board? So in the case of education, That's what we need to do.
Yes, if you're interested in getting involved or reaching out to us, if you want to bring in your academic institutions, if you want to bring in your students, if you want to come in yourself, or if you know people that are interested, feel free to look at our website. It's www.mmaars.com, or you can feel free to email us at marsacademy@gmail.com.
So we always end like this, Em. You ready?
Yeah.
Live long and
Live
prosper.
long and prosper.
Thank you, everyone.
Are there any questions? Oh, okay.
Oh, if you can play the VL, that'd be great, because that would be a great way to end. Questions?
Any questions? Yes. Oh.
So how large is your company?
In terms of size? People, we're a startup still, right? So we're about 10, 20 people.
Okay.
With a lot of partnerships from both corporate, private, and researcher scientists. Because it's been going since 2015. So over those years, we've been able to have a very vast network from all different entities. And myself, I've been involved in, entrepreneurship as well, coming out of Singularity University, Founders Institute and ASU and all this. So it's a huge community that we've built up to be able to help us create this. But I would just say I have to give a lot of kudos to my daughter, who's my co-founder, because why I knew that was important to have voices from different generations, to be able to engage with people of different, age and different backgrounds. So sometimes, you've got the young generation and they don't want to listen to an old person. Oh, okay. So this is our example of a mission of a landing on Mars. And if you see a button...
MAU-11, rotate to -22 degrees approach angle. Report before 50 nautical
You're
miles
actually
altitude.
able to interact with this. This is the computerized 360, but if you had a VR headset on, you can actually look around. So this is just the 360 nautical miles altitude.
MAU-11, your approach is steep. Perform trajectory correction maneuver and get back to reference trajectory. Be careful not to skip.
So this is simulating, you're on the space rocket and you're headed to Mars and you're going to head to
subsonic torture propulsion on MAU-11 clear for landing.
The spacecraft landing to 5 meters by 1 meter.
Tax Mariner Valley mission control.
Welcome to Mars Academy VR simulation training. Please look around and proceed to the Energy and Environment module.
Yeah, I think you're stuck on entering.
Airlock pressurization commencing.
Oh, there we go. So now we're entering into the hub.
You see it slow, but if you actually go and see it on the cloud, internet,
this is a very
training
early
module initiated. Please select a system you want to manage from the menu.
And this was the first VR, AR, really VR simulation to be able to get an idea of what it would be like to be in the rocket and enter the space or enter our habitat on Mars. Oh. But you guys kind of got an idea of what it is. And it's actually active, so you can actually, when you get out of this...
So this is more recent. This is using Oculus or as a HoloLens 2, where you can come in as an avatar. You can see the hand. So because if you wear the device, you see the person's hand. And here we're doing what we call holo triage. It's triaging. So in this case. You have several patients. This one is an unconscious person, and you could see the person's hand actually finding the pulse. And then here is another, because it's triaging. So this is young boy choking. You can see the person, and that's a real hand, by the way, because they're wearing the headset and interacting with the avatar, slapping the person's back to maybe dislodge the block, the obstruction in the throat. And then over here is a woman. She's bleeding out. She's got a fractured leg. So now it's telling you instructions what to do. It's telling him, okay, now, and he has to literally walk over to where this first aid kit is. He's pulling it off, and he's wearing the HoloLens or the spatial computing headset, so he's able to interact with these holographic images. He's able to move it around. So in this case, he's bleeding out. He's trying to pack the wound and put on a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. So you can see every time, you can see the text there. Every time you do the correct procedure in the protocol, it will move you on to the next. Say, okay, move on to the next.
So this is the next generation of what we were doing. Initially, it was the VR only because of the capabilities of the headsets at the time. Now we have HoloLens 2, eventually HoloLens 3. But we have now AR, our capabilities of being able to integrate virtual world with the real world, and that really helps with training. And again, this is medical training aspect, but it also goes with space exploration. You can see that they actually pull the AEC, and you're going to learn how to actually. That's the concept. Using holographic images, superimposing real environments in real time is what you're going to engage in. So it's very immersive. Everything that's technology, it's immersive. So even then, you could tell he's trying to do, compressions and so on and so forth. So this is what Emmy said. This is the future of training and education, where you're going to use the technology in a very positive way. And I know we have some more questions.
All right. One question. Are you familiar with the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics Space Colonization Technology?
No. But we are.
Well, that's what that's
of
the
AIAA.
arm of AIAA that
Yeah.
specializes.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right.
That's another organization.
Yeah, we're
Also,
Michelle.
Airlock pressurization commencing.
Yeah, and anybody else out there that's listening, this still soon, reach out to us too, because we do offer internships, scholarships, and mentorships, because it's very important. This is our way to pay. Please reach out.
Oh yes, this is back to VR opera experience. Now you've just entered the hab. Again, it's VR setting. You can actually interact with the demonstration. Well, now it's frozen in the area, but he actually walks into the habitat, and you actually see what it's like to be in the hab and to look out over the Mars landscape.
Welcome to Mars Academy, USA.
He's walking in now.
Your training to become a digital astronaut is about to begin.
Use the arrows up in the upper left corner and really visually look around. This was a very, very rudimentary, basic iteration of our VR training. And now, throughout the years, it's expanded and gotten better, I like to think.
No, it is. So we are going to put it into a multiplayer metaverse. And so now that the idea of that is now you can engage not only but with yourself alone in the immersive world, which is what basic virtual reality is. We're talking about augmented, extended reality. So now you can come in as multiplayer in the metaverse that we're building, and you'll be able to work with other participants, or you could say your crew members, together in this immersive world, right? So maybe you want to do a EVA, a geological EVA. So you all come in as avatars, right? You all have your own avatars. You come in, you're going to dress in your spacesuit, and then you're going to learn the protocols. You're going to help each other engage, and then you go and do this EVA, a geological EVA, do terrain scouting and using equipment and so on. So you're going to work together interactively. You're going to use the technology, but you're there in real time. Your human presence is there, but you're not your, your real physical presence. That's what is so really fascinating about these technologies that's out there right now, right? Yeah. So so it's going to be in our company, and we'll put, so what you just saw with the training, we'll put that on Steam because that's virtual reality, right? So on Steam platform, it's virtual reality. But with our metaverse, that will actually be integrated into our own platform, where you have to, engage with our platform and then go into it, because that's using, augmented reality or extended reality. So there's different ways to engage immersively. VR or virtual reality is the most simple way, but you can't really do a lot of interaction with your computerized world. Yeah. But with augmented reality and extended, or using HoloLens, it's spatial computing. It's basically holographic images superimposed on the real environment, and on the metaverse, you can, with these avatars that you create yourself, you can come in immersively and work with others. That's a whole more advanced, Sorry? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, they did. But I think, they did the very first using the HoloLens on Mars. But yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we will. Yeah, great. Join it. Oh.
One last thing before I leave, I just want to let you know that I've worked in space colonization for the Moon and Mars for over 20 years, and I mean, being paid by Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. So I have a lot of background as far as human-machine interface, bioastronautics, geology, astronomy. So all those things that might be involved there. So if you ever have a question that you'd like to tweet me, let me know. In the meantime, I think you're doing a great job. I think that the schools would benefit from this a lot.
We want to work with the schools and bring in some of them, interact them and bring their students in, even if it's just introducing them to simple technology, right? Like learning to be an analog astronaut. I mean, it's all age group. That's why we're here, right? To be able to say, here we are, we've got resources, we want to partner, we want to collaborate.
Did you have a question? She had a question. Oh, yeah, she had a question.
So how do your internship programs work?
Yeah, so our internship works when you come into a virtual training. And in our virtual training, it gives you an introduction to, what we do, how we do it, the architecture, the programs, very simple program, the projects that we work on. Then once you've gone through that experience, then you can decide if you want an internship, and we have different various levels of internship. So obviously some of our projects are internal to our partners, our company partner, that we partner with, or to ourselves. And it's whatever interests you, right? Because we have across all different sectors projects. So if there's a particular, so for example, if you're interested in what we just showed you, right, the holo triage using Oculus to do medical training, we call MedXR training, then we say, okay, we want to do an internship in that area, right? If you're interested in robotics, right, we talked about that female robot that's coming into a crew mission in 2023. Then we could say come in and work on that. So that's the way to do, and different internships are different duration and so on and so forth. So we're interested in giving an internship to a student who is either interested in expanding or wanting to finding an experience in the technology area that they've never experience, and they want to have a little bit of experience and see if that's the direction. So it's a way for us to open up opportunities for you to find new ways to, engage.
Yeah, so it really depends on if you reach out to us and you let us, I don't know if you're a university student or, if if you're studying a specific thing, whereas we have students that are in Poland that are interested in drones or rovers specifically, right? So they want to work on certain technologies that we're developing that deals with only rovers and aspects of the rovers. Versus we also have interns that are very interested in humanoid robotics, and that are local that are very interested in with bringing in a humanoid robot into our mission. We have people that are very interested in architecture and developing space habitats. And so they'd come in and, really work on designing and developing and expanding the Mars habitat on what would make it more realistic for participants to come in and experience living in a habitat. So it's really based off of, what your goals are, what you're very interested in, and we work with you to be able to reach those goals. And that's the whole, that's the end of the day, the real reason for internships. So
Also, are the internships virtual or in person?
It's both.
Both.
So the in person is if you've gone through our in person training, but the virtual, we have virtual internships as well.
And do the in person trainings, how often do they happen?
Yeah, so we offer them once a month. And the virtual we offer, once a month. Our in-person, because of COVID, we had to be very careful. But we'll start deploying missions in Q3 and Q4 2023 for the in-person mission. But it's a prerequisite to actually to complete our virtual level one before you can come into our in-person missions. Because that's the way for you to understand, what's expected of you, and also for you to know what you're going to be required to do in the mission. So it's vitally important, as Emmy has said, that you understand our architecture of what is an analog astronaut, what's an analog mission, what are the projects, and what's my responsibility, what's my role, what am I expected to do. So all this is introduced to you in our virtual one, but also you get to learn about the different technology areas that we're involved in our virtual one, so it's a real important introduction.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, we are trying to reach to more school and educators. So, this is holiday. So, actually, we went to several schools early this year: elementary, middle school, high school. We did outreach exhibition. So, for example, you are welcome to come with us.
Yeah, fantastic.
And the other thing is actually we actually have been showing several things from. For example, we have a member. He has been working on this Mars driving software, like what you're doing, also VR, something like that. And he authorized us because he is very busy. So when he could not join us, he actually authorized to play the Steam version of it. Just to show students, how fun it is to drive on Mars. And when he has time, he will show up to give a talk, something like that. So you can do, you also join us in person, or you're busy, we can set up online and or you authorize to show special occasion or something for the Steam version or something like that. So we are trying to do it, and I think this is great. A student will be very inspired. Of course, also Joanne, the 3D printing. Yeah, Joanne already volunteered. He said he'll come to school when if she has time, she will join us. Bioprinter? It's solar powered bioprinter, right? Anyway, yeah. Very good. Yes. Yeah, definitely. We actually got quite some. That's
gonna be out of Mars.
Well, one of the things that we test with 3D printing is actually using a simulant Martian regolith and simulant lunar regolith, and be able to use that to obviously put in a different mix of in the material, right? So we use carbon and PLA when we printed those surgical tools, and we printed out the solar power 3D printer, and it was really tough, right? It could cut steak, a 3-inch steak, because there was carbon mix in it. So it'll be interesting we never used simulant at this point. So maybe, I don't know. That's what we're trying to do.
We can conduct through our.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, I know. Yeah, exactly. So, it's a great way for experiments, right?
Yeah, actually, there's Al Globus, you know him, right? Al Globus. He's going to show up on Tuesday for the virtual reality because we are going to show a couple O'Neill's picture that it's M's, it's not his own, but he has a collection of the pictures. We'll put into virtual reality gallery, and he has his Kalpana one. This is not the Mars habit. This is orbiting L1, L2, as Dean was saying. And we are going to and he has some artists produce some kind of 3D picture. He also signed up, so I think he will show up. It's not a presentation, but it will be like that. Al will also say a few words, and I'm just to guide the tour for the 3D gallery. And if you wear the Oculus and you can talk, use a microphone for Oculus, or you can use 2D or something. But so Tuesday is the theme is also space colonization.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
5:30.
I think also I want to just push it out there is that there's a project that we want to start. We started it a few years ago and we put it on the shelf, but it's a project for diet nutrition, but it's for medicinal. When you think about deep space missions, right? If you try to use non-pharmacological intervention, right, for the astronauts is the better way to approach. So one of the studies that we're trying to design and start creating in our missions is the medicinal plant project. So what do I mean by that? Well, it's for us to try to grow plants that have medicinal properties in them, right, and to grow them in these simulant. At this time, right, to see do they grow in these simulant soils and these medicinal plants. So, for example, cannabinoids, right? Cannabinoids that are in the marijuana plants, right? And also hemp, where they're also make robot or clothes or food. Right, you can. So the medicinal plant project. If anyone's out there is interested, reach out to us because we have a green hab that's part of the habitat that, when we actually work with the Mojave Spaceport, that's kind of where we're heading next, is to actually bring in our training program into the partner with the Mojave Spaceport. So we are able to have a green hab, for long periods of time. So what we grow over the seasons, we can harvest in the mission. So the idea is to actually use different biotechnology to grow these food sources or these plants and try to extract their medicinal property. I mean, this is a study that we've, because I'm medicine, is something that I've always wanted to start. So if anyone's interested and want to join this project, we would love to speak to you, give you an internship, come into a mission. We'll give you a scholarship to join our mission. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. This is very exciting. And what just a comment, what you did, this psychology, social, we actually post a couple, a paper by Dr. Jim Path.
Oh, yeah, I know Jim.
Sociology is very interesting. I think it's a very interesting factor. The other thing is space medicine. We have been having several space medicine talks. And we also have educator, actually her team. What's not she directly, she a group of teacher, but she's our member that they actually went for a competition. Student went for NASA. They grow hemp.
Yes, hemp, exactly.
They sent to space station.
I know. Yeah. No, hemp is amazing.
They got the NASA prize.
Yeah, hemp, you can eat it. You can use it for clothing. You can use it for structures, building structures. So
I have a friend that's selling hemp.
So we want to grow hemp in our missions and test it out. We want to, all different types of food sources that we could grow and test it out, because eventually when you are going to live on a planet's surface, it's not going to be traditional agriculture, right? We're not going to grow food the way that we grow on Earth. It's not going to happen. So you have to use cutting edge technology, biotech technology. So one of them is also using stem cells, right? So 3D printing bioreactors and growing different types of plant source stem cells to grow the plants is the way to go.
I was about to mention because Madhu and I have been thinking about if we can do the bioprinting to print food.
Yeah,
that's
3D
easy.
print food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. This is amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
people
everyone.
online. Thank you. Bye-bye. This is wonderful. Appreciate it. No, it's okay. It's okay to post the video online to share with people.
Of course you can.
Thank you. The more people will know about you and your effort.